Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if some of you guys are new around here. We've got some more deer hunting today, and it was a pretty strange, unexpected, but successful hunt for the archery season at the end of the day. So yeah, we're definitely going to get into some very interesting things in this video. Now I don't want to ramble too much for an intro here, but I will set a couple things in place for you guys real quick. All the hunting we're doing in today's video is going to take place between October the 11th or so and October 30th during the archery season here in Virginia. All of it is on private land, and it's pretty much your standard archery back 40 type of hunt. And real quick, I will go over the setup just so you guys can see what we're actually using. So here is the crossbow we're actually going to be running. It's a 10-point GT curve, so a recurve style crossbow. Definitely nothing fancy about it, that's for sure, but I enjoy hunting with it. It's something a little bit different and not quite as laser or fast as what a lot of these new crossbows are, but it still gets the job done, and it has for me for a long time. And here is the bolt setup we're going to be running as well. These are just some old Easton 2219 aluminum shaft bolts. And as for our broadhead, we've got the 125 grain Magnus Black Hornets with the bleeder blades on there as well. Definitely a very nasty broadhead that I've used for a long time, and it does very well. And I threw a very cheap lighted knock on here as well, but it serves the purpose. And I also forgot to mention our total arrow weight here is right at 485 grains, and it's going to be moving right at about 270 feet per second out of this crossbow. Now we will be using a second arrow setup in here as well, but we'll get more onto that later. But I think that's enough talking. We've got the basics out of the way, we've got the setup out of the way, so let's move on into day number 1 and get right into the hunting.
Alright y'all, well, we're out in the stand here. It's October the 11th. Archery season here in Virginia started the 5th of October, so I am late to the party, but that's kind of been the theme for this hunting season so far for me, including today. It's just been one of those days of never-ending stuff over and over again. You forget your truck keys, then you forget your rangefinder, then you forget the side-by-side keys, and then I forgot the camera. So it has not been a very smooth afternoon, but we're out here in the stand one way or the other. It's about 45 minutes later than what I wanted to be, but such is life. We're out here on this food plot, but I'm not really here for the food plot itself. It's not really completely grown up yet, and it's probably about 3 to 4 weeks too early for them to actually be caring very much about this food plot, but I'm here for the location of it. We have numerous different trails that come right through this field, and I've been getting a couple decent bucks here recently in the last few days on my camera that's about 120 yards or so in front of me. So there's definitely a chance that we have a decent buck move through here. There's a chance we may see nothing, but if we do, it could get exciting pretty quick. So I guess I'll wait it out, and if something good comes along, I'll flip the camera on and we'll see what we can make happen.
Alright, so that handful of does you saw there was the only thing I ended up seeing on the first night there, but they did exactly what I kind of expected them to do. They were just moving through, they decided to stop for a couple of minutes and just munch around, and they carried right on their way. But they weren't anything that I was really looking to shoot, so I let them all walk past me. So, on to day number 2 we went.
Alright, well, it's the next evening, and we're back out in the stand again, but we're in a little bit different location. I'm kind of overlooking this little four-wheeler, old logging trail type of deal, down in this tiny little runoff creek bottom. I typically don't like to hunt this stand during bow season, but the conditions are right tonight to be able to get in here, and they weren't quite right for some other stands on the property, so I guess we'll see what happens. I did take a buck out of this stand right about this same time a couple of years ago. It's actually the one in the channel profile picture. So there's definitely a chance that we do see something, but there's also a chance that we see absolutely nothing in here as well. It's still a little bit green and a little bit thicker in here than what I would like, but we do have several shot windows out to 30 or 35 yards or so in here, so we do have our opportunities. We just have to keep our head on a swivel. So I guess let's wait it out and see if we get anything that comes by here tonight that is enticing enough to take a shot at.
And for day number 2 there, that doe and fawn was all we ended up seeing. They were probably right at about 50 to 55 yards or so. So even if it was a decent buck, it's just a little bit farther of a distance than what I would typically like to shoot, especially with this old recurve style crossbow. It's just not feasible. So always good to see deer, but they were a little bit too far and they weren't anything that I was really looking to shoot either. Alright, so fast forward in about a week later or so, we're now going to be on the 22nd of October, and I decided to go back into that same stand again because that is where I had been seeing the best deer movement throughout the season. I had hunted several other stands and pretty much seen nothing. So considering that's where the deer movement was, that's where I went. And surprise, surprise, we actually saw a little bit of buck movement tonight. And things got very interesting very quickly, that's for sure. Now, for whatever reason, I didn't film any kind of, intro or anything when I was sitting in the stand. I honestly can't remember why I didn't, but let's just hop right into the action over there because this is about to go completely not how I expected it or wanted it to. So let's hop into the stand and let things unfold.
Matt, Matt.
That buck ran and stood right at probably about 45 yards up there behind the trees for the next 10 minutes or so. Didn't really move at all, didn't know what happened until a spiked buck came along and kind of got him back on track a little bit. This was unfortunate because at this point, somehow or another, he had allowed me to recock my crossbow in the tree stand, but when he got into it with this spike buck, they were at about 55 yards, which is just too far for me to take that shot, especially with a buck that's already a little bit leery. It's just not a wise idea. So ultimately, I had to sit there and watch him do his own thing and eventually just walk away from me. Alright, well, as you can see, that was a complete miss. And I need to jump in here and explain a couple things and go over a couple things because I think it deserves way more context than just that. So, first off, why would I even be shooting a buck like that in the first place? It's a 4-point, although it is not a terribly small 4-point. The reason I decided to shoot that buck is simply because of the property that I'm hunting. It's 30 acres jammed between a bunch of very large farms that have a lot of hunters on them. If I don't shoot that buck here, somebody else is going to shoot him within the next day or two. It's very unfortunate, but that's just how this property is laid out, and I don't have very much, if any, control over the deer herd. I would love to have let him walk, but if we see anything bigger than a spike here, it's probably going to be a good idea to take a shot at it because you probably won't get another chance to see him. So that is the reason there. And at the end of the day, I need meat in my freezer, and if he's the most mature deer on the property, then that's just what it's going to be. Number two, the reason why we missed. And before anything else, I take complete 100% responsibility for missing that deer, no matter what angle we take at it. But I will explain my thoughts as to what actually happened here. And to do that, I'm going to bring in the actual arrows that we were using at the time. These are some serious Archery Phoenix crossbow bolts. I had the same broadhead, same knock setup and everything on here. But long story short, I had been having some very strange issues with these. I would get them dialed in, knock tuned, everything. They would fly great for 10, 15, 20 shots, and then magically they would change. They would be just all over the place. You would shoot one and it would sail high. They would do weird things. So should I have been using these if I was the slightest bit not confident in their consistency on an actual hunt? Probably not. That is definitely a mistake on my part, and I take full responsibility for it. But what the camera angle does not show is what I saw this bolt do when it took off out of my crossbow. I saw it fly nice and straight for about 15 yards, and then mid-flight, it did one of these numbers. It took off like it hit a ramp. I don't know why. There was no twigs, no leaves, no sticks, no anything in the way. My crossbow limbs and string didn't hit anything. I even cleared that lane specifically for bow hunting. And this is what these bolts have been doing. So it's just a case of unfortunate timing, and I probably should not have been using these bolts in the grand scheme of things if I knew they had the potential to do that. So call it an excuse if you want, but we missed 2 feet over that deer's back. It wasn't even remotely close. But I would much rather miss than get a bad shot and wound a deer or potentially lose a deer and never recover it. So that is a win for what it's worth. Either way, I immediately went and found some different old 2219 aluminum bolts like I used to shoot before these carbon ones, because I know they shot great. We got them all set up the next day. They were shooting great, so back out in the woods we went. So over the course of the next week or so, I was out hunting multiple days a week, and we did see a couple straggling deer here and there, right at dark or something. We also saw a skunk move through, which was rather interesting to see, that's for sure. We even saw a turtle, which I think was probably the first one I've seen in a deer stand, along with a fox that just moved on through, but nothing really too much of note, I wouldn't say. So at this point, we are roughly about a week later after I missed that buck, and I decided to head back into that same stand where I had missed him previously. The weather conditions were right and stuff, although I did not expect to see him ever again at all. But what I did not end up filming here is very shortly after I got up in this stand, I saw that buck, the same one we missed, stand up at about 60 yards in front of me. All I could see was his tail and one little bit of his antler. That was it, but I knew it was that buck because there's no other bucks in the area with antlers like him. I couldn't film it, the camera didn't want to focus on anything because he was through some thick brush, whatever the case might have been. And within a few minutes of him standing up, he walked up the hillside out of my sight, and I never expected to see him again that evening. But little to my surprise, about 45 or so minutes later, I heard leaves crunching in the same spot that he stood up from earlier. And sure enough, here he came again. This time he was headed right along the path that I was hoping he would take the first time. And trust me, I never expected to get a second chance at this deer, so considering the path he was taking, he was about to make his last mistake.
He's right here under the stand. I don't know if I even had him in frame there, but he was 15 yards. Oh, wow. He is right under my stand. I don't even know if I had him in frame. Wow, I mean, you can see I'm shaking here a little bit, but my blue arrow, yeah, my blue knock is right there. The camera won't really focus, but wow. He came right across there and right up and just crashed right here behind me. That was the buck that we missed the other night, and he's nothing huge, but hey, we've got meat in the freezer and a buck on the ground. Let's go check him out here. I'll give him a few minutes, I suppose, but I think it's safe to say that we've made a good shot on him. All right, well, y'all, that was pretty impressive, and I think I'm probably gonna have to blur a little bit of that or something because that broadhead is nasty, that's for sure. It is a complete bloodbath back behind the tree stand. But I had seen that buck about 30 minutes ago get up and just wander over there. I saw him for all of, I don't know, 30 seconds, about 60 yards across, down into this little creek bottom. And I thought he was gonna come across then, but he didn't. So I let him be, because I knew that there was a good chance he was gonna wind up coming through here anyway. And sure enough, he did. So it pretty well worked out exactly how I wanted it to. I mean, he was legitimately, I don't know, 15, 17 yards, something like that right down here. So yeah, no complaints about that one way or the other. I wish I could have got it done the first time, but I'm happy that I missed at the end of the day and we were able to get a second shot off on him tonight. So we completed the mission, that's for sure, for the archery season anyway. All right, y'all, well, I got him drug out here a little bit where it's a little bit less murder, if you know what I mean back there, because that broadhead is pretty nasty. So yeah, that hunt went beautifully this evening. Everything worked out fantastic for us. He's no giant, that's for sure. I mean, you're looking at 4 points here, but the fact of the matter is we had already taken one shot at this buck a week ago and missed. And with a property that's set up like this, you have to take your chances on pretty much anything that's bigger than a spike whenever you get them, because you may not get that second chance. So ultimately, this was the second biggest deer I had been seeing on this property for a month now, and we capitalized. We've got meat in the freezer, and it was definitely a little bit of an interesting hunt and way to get him, I suppose. Having missed him a week ago and having a second chance at 15 yards tonight, I always say that right at Halloween is the best time, and it's the 30th now. So once again, that's proven true for me anyway. So I guess we'll get this guy cleaned up and field dressed and get him off to the butcher.
Alright, y'all, well, that was definitely an exciting hunt. I didn't end up filming me taking him to the butcher, but we got him dropped off. And I guess quick side note, if you have the ability to, it's always nice to take your deer to your local butcher, small business, support them, and you get to talk to other hunters in the area and see what's going on as well. So I always like to do that if I have the opportunity to. But we got him butchered up, we got meat in the freezer now, and at the end of the day, that was a very up and down roller coaster of a hunt. To miss a deer like that at 28 yards, and to come back a week later on a property that's set up like this that's already difficult enough to hunt and somehow manage to get him on the ground after it's all done is definitely a win, that's for sure, because I never would have expected that to happen. But that's hunting for you. That's why you got to go out, because you never really know what to expect. So there we have it. Let me know all your thoughts about it down in the comments. And if you've had something similar like this go on in one of your hunts. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to miss or nobody wants to make a bad shot on a deer. But it doesn't matter if you're a new hunter or a hunter that's been hunting for 60 or 70 years. It's going to happen at some point. You're going to make a bad shot, or you're going to have an arrow clip a little stick or something that you didn't see. You're going to miss. You're going to make a bad shot, whatever the case is. It's going to happen eventually, but if something like that is going to go wrong, it's much better to have a clean miss. And from that, especially if you've got a camera where you can see what happened, you can take that and learn and apply that as you continue on hunting, because something happened differently in that scenario than what had happened in the 10, 20, 50, 100 times previous. But at the end of the day, we were successful in the mission, and now we've got meat in the freezer, and I'm happy with that deer, so everything's good in the world here, that's for sure. So I guess I'll leave it off at that. It was a good hunt, but definitely one that didn't go exactly how I expected it to either. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's hunt. As always, you have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like to as well. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it. But I'm going to get back to all the hunting and the normal testing that we normally do. So I'll see y'all in the next one.